All right, everybody, welcome back. It's the end of the world with Michael and Stu.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Stu, and today we are talking about the most important world-ending issue of all time. That's right, it is the potential for a MAGA civil war over the Jeffrey Epstein case.
Conspiracy or not?
Question mark.
Right.
I think because this is a contemporary issue again, suddenly in the last couple weeks, we're not going to actually talk about any news because in a way this kind of is just...
this is the news.
This is the news, but right off the top, why don't I remind everyone, if you like the show, you can follow us on the podcatcher of your choice, and if you really like it, you can rate and or review us on that podcatcher, and you can also follow us on the End of the World WMS at Instagram. And yeah, we're always looking to get the word out about the show, so you could also just tell a friend, tell a loved one, tell a beloved parent. I'm sure the parents will love this. So yeah, why now? Why Epstein? Why now? Do you have any theories about this? Why has this come back? My biggest reaction, this all started a couple days after the 4th of July. I think July 6th, when Pam Bondi, kind of out of nowhere, announced, actually,
yeah,
no, there's no Epstein client list. There's no one is implicated by any of the information.
Yeah, and I said exactly that there was, but what I meant was the big file, huge file, bunch of files actually.
Yeah.
And I looked in the files, no list. Yeah. Why is it coming back now? I mean, this is, there are a couple of reasons, I think. I mean, one is that it never really went away in the sense that it was such a big deal for these same people for a long time.
For the people that support Trump, right? Primarily.
All it took was a sort of sense that they were retracting. And then, we've seen this, what is so interesting about this to me is that this is the first thing it appears, maybe since like he ran for election the first time, where the laws of political gravity appear to actually apply to him. I mean, there's so many things that have been scandalous and he has made worse by the things he has said, and somehow he has skated by every time. And I think that he is used to that strategy. And now that he's facing real blowback, I mean, how many times you're like, okay, just say something normal about Russia. And then he gets up on stage and like,
he's like,
starts for 2 minutes saying something like he's been told to say, and then veers off for an hour
into how great Putin is or whatever,
raising even more questions. And you're seeing this again with like, why is this the issue that he's like, America, move on? Why is this the issue where he's finally willing to tell some of his supporters to go away?
Tell them that they're in fact weaklings and losers, and
that's right, and
very sick people.
He didn't recognize, I think, right away that finally this was one where, like I said, the laws of that gravity were going to apply. And so he applied his normal order of operations and very quickly realized that wasn't going to suffice. And so he had to go next level,
Yeah, I think that's right. Also, I think the timing is a little funny because the big, beautiful bill, so-called, although not thanks to Chuck Schumer, no longer officially called that, was voted in on over just before the July 4th holiday. And so it's like, all right, the agenda is satisfied. This has led to the springing up of some conspiracy theories, which kind of imply that basically J.D. Vance and the tech oligarch Peter Thiel, Elon / others are obviously, they're through with Trump. They got what they wanted. They slashed Medicaid. They got their tax breaks. And this is like the opening salvo in a bid to kind of remove him early because,
yes,
let's face it, he's a nightmare, right? He's not actually very much to their liking, and he's worse. He's a wild card, right? Mm-hmm. Someone like Vance is clearly 100% pliable and pliant to and by these,
as evidenced by his entire political evolution.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I don't know if I put much stock in that. I think you're more on the right track by saying this is primarily about a misjudgment by Trump himself.
That's right.
But it's been kind of funny. This furor has been building for a couple weeks now, and may have started to simmer down a little bit. I don't know. We'll
Mhm.
talk. We'll go through some of the big events in the last couple weeks. One thing that really got us on the, on the desire to do an episode about this was the Scott Adams defense of Trump. Right? You sent me this like 30-minute video where the Dilbert creator is like, you know,
Yeah,
guys.
so let's just explain a little bit. Like it is a hilarious clip. It is worth watching in its entirety. Maybe we'll put a link to it.
Oh, there'll be a link in the description.
Yeah, he obviously is in the bag for Trump and has been
Die
for,
Hard.
yeah. And basically what he is doing in this clip is letting everyone know that he's about to change their mind. The first like 10 minutes, right, Stu? He's like, look, I can see what you're thinking. This is bad. This is really
Rich and
bad.
powerful people abusing
Hmm.
children. This is the
Yeah,
worst thing we could imagine,
that's right. And Trump is going to drain the swamp and all of that. And I get it all. I get it all. And I can even see that angle. But I'm about to just flip the switch on you. I am about to change your entire worldview right now. I mean, are you ready?
Not
And then,
since Cicero has rhetoric.
yes, right, right. And then on top of that, he goes into the most obvious, banal explanation for,
Delusional
well,
about.
certainly delusional. I mean, yes, that sort of goes without saying with Scott Adams.
Sure,
But my
sure.
point is that,
Scott
like,
Adams, by the way, the Dilbert creator, if anyone had forgotten.
right, his big reveal is sort of this, would you say like a counterfactual kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, so like it is, we don't live in a democracy. We can't vote on the files. We live in a democratic republic, and we need someone to make the decisions, to see the information. And the fact is that Donald Trump has seen the information, and the president has decided that the risk from a national security perspective is simply too grave. And then he starts asking questions like, if I told you that if we release the files, many, many Americans would die, what would you say then? Right. And again, there are, we'll go through some of the other responses too. They're all, somewhat equally as maniacal, but it's such a great illustration of the clutching at straws, right? And again, this sort of godhead of Trump, that there has to be a reason he's not doing what he said he was going to do. There has to be a reason he's telling the country to move on, because he's so wise and he's so aware, and he has our best interests at heart, as we can all agree with every issue outside of this one prickly one. Therefore, he's earned our trust, and we have to all move on because our national security. If there was going to be a nuclear bomb, Stu, would you want to release the list?
No, of
Oh,
course not.
yes, exactly. Thank you. So that's exactly what's. You can see, listeners, you can tell that Stu's worldview has been
Stu, if your
completely.
family was going to be killed if the list came out, would you want it to be released then? What?
Right.
Wait, no, Scott Adams, I would not.
Right. And we know it's bad. The important thing, Scott, look, we know it's bad. Scott Adams says it's obviously really bad. But he's dead. And
Let's move
your
on.
family, your family might be too, if it weren't for Trump.
Now, I'm reminded of a phrase of Milton's, which he said was the point of his great epic poem Paradise Lost, which we'll do an episode on at some point.
Mhm.
Maybe a 10-part episode. It's quite long. But he says, to justify the ways of God to men is what he sets out to do. And I think with all of these, especially with the Scott Adams types, it's like you said, no matter what it is that Trump has put forth, your immediate move is to just be like, well, this is right. And
That's
so
right.
I'm just going to contort myself into whatever pretzel of justification and rationality in
Yeah.
order to make this seem true. Now, Will Sommer, who is a great writer, has written a lot about QAnon and other conspiracy theorists. He writes for a sort of centrist outlet called The Bulwark now. He did a little sort of breakdown of the 5 types of MAGA response
Mm-hmm.
to Trump's basically saying, get over it, forget this, leave the Epstein thing alone. Jeffrey Epstein's been dead. It's ancient history. There's one which is the get over it crowd. And this is exemplified by Charlie Kirk, who at least initially said, you know, guys, I had a lot of questions, but I trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to let it
I'm
go.
fiercely independent. However, I do trust my friends in the administration.
Just amazing, right? Then there are the Epstein dead enders. So Tucker Carlson being an example of this, because Epstein for them represents the impunity of the elites in all things, not just sex trafficking. Steve Bannon, Candace Owens, a lot of the other anti-Israel Trump people also align with this view. I wonder why. What's the?
What could that be?
Yeah,
What could that be?
is it because of certain conspiracies tying Epstein to the secret, police and secret services of the certain
Sure.
Mediterranean nation? I don't
Mhm.
know. Then there's compromisers. These are people who think that this has to be. We got to put this on the back burner because we really got to focus on the most important thing, which is rooting out the deep state and other anti-Trump forces that are deeply entrenched. We'll come back to
Yes, yes.
this.
The people in charge of something as large and grandiose as draining the swamp, there is actually a lot to do. So we're gonna have to put this on the back burner.
That's right, and these people believe that there are bigger things to deal with. That one is, of course, relitigating the 2020 election because that will
Seems
never.
way more important, right, Stu, than the Epstein case? Sure.
And Kash Patel is also working, in these people's opinion, on a sprawling case. And that this
Mm.
gets in the way. This is a distraction. We need to focus on the locking up of Obama, which we'll talk about later, but that seems to be like the latest pivot.
Mm.
Um, then there's the cabal accommodationists. These are the people like Scott Adams, seems to be implying, that the cabal is too powerful. And if Trump releases the Epstein files, Trump will be pushed out and or taken out. Tim Dillon is another person, the brilliant comedic mind that is Tim
Mhm.
Dillon, that believe in this. Adams, even after posting his video that we mentioned off the top, sort of seemed to
Yeah, the
he
implications.
lost his nerve a little bit, I think, after that, because I think he got a lot of pushback from
Yeah,
pro release the files people. And then the last are just the oblivious. Roger Stone is Will Summers' example of
Roger
this.
Stone, King of the Oblivious. Yeah.
Roger Stone, still alive somehow.
Hmm.
He's just stonewalling. So he says it doesn't matter and we should ignore it. And he's kind of parroting the Trump line of like, why are we still talking about this? And a lot of these people appeared at the Turning Point Charlie Kirk conference a couple weeks ago when this was first really popping off.
Hmm.
And Roger Stone refused to address it throughout his speech. The whole crowd is like jeering for him to talk about Epstein. So I don't think this is a particularly effective strategy. So those are the five types that Will Summer identified a couple weeks ago, and I think these are. I think this is a pretty good rundown of the sort of
Yeah.
justifications that we've seen. Now, how familiar, Michael? Are you familiar with the Jeffrey Epstein case? Like
Yeah.
how deep into the woods with this did you go back in 2019, 2020?
I mean, I think with things like this, I tend to not because I am guilty of clinging to media I trust, and so like I am one of those people that was really early on the TrueAnon train and just
Sure,
sort of like,
sure.
and I would just listen to all of those,
Oh, I mean,
and
I think TrueAnon have been the absolute best on all of this stuff.
absolutely, yeah, yeah, and I think most people listening obviously have the basic understanding of what happened from what the island was doing and you know the suicide questions,
Sure, sure. Well, I listened to the TrueAnon's sort of latest episode last week about all of this, and I think that really struck me is how extremely rational and reasonable TrueAnon is about
Mhm.
all of this stuff.
Mhm.
When many people, either on the fringes or in the mainstream media, are much more ignorant and or hysterical about the whole Epstein case.
Yes, and also a point I really want to make here, using TrueAnon kind of as the example, is that one of the ways that this is being defended by Trump and much of the media, right, is that they are talking about it in the context of the MAGA civil war. And what does that do? That allows the seriousness of many of these things, the unansweredness of many of these questions, to be sort of like compartmentalized into, well, what do we know about MAGA? They are conspiracy theorists. They believe things that are totally unfounded, right? And so if we're making it that these sort of, nutters are upset about the Epstein thing, then we can sort of contain it to like, yeah, they think he killed himself. There's no evidence for that. They think this and this. They think there's a smoking gun. How nuts, right? But the truth is that like this is a very serious issue across the board, right? And you can see this in American politics. I just want to briefly say in many other more like uh, substantial ways, not to minimize the Epstein thing, but like you see this in the way that something important like public health care is given a route, and that route is like angry online Bernie bros.
Right.
When in actual fact, something this serious that Medicare for All had incredibly popular, broad support from people in both parties, right? And you sort of go right down the line with that, like raising money on the on the rich, right, or rent controls, or cheaper groceries. They get marginalized by being like, oh yeah, Zoran, don't know what's going on there. These socialists are taking over the Democratic Party. It's always about funneling the thing that they don't want to deal with into a group that they can handle. Does that make sense?
Yeah, or at least that they can marginalize by claiming they're crazy, or
That's
that
right.
they're claiming that their actually broadly popular opinion is somehow coming from the fringe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's quite astute on your part. Additionally, I think the funny thing in the last 2 weeks that hasn't happened is we haven't seen the Democrats throw all their weight behind this stuff.
No, in fact, Pelosi called it a distraction.
Well, I mean, if there's anyone who I listen to, it's
We're
Nancy
we're we're
Pelosi.
too busy pretending to deal with other issues.
Yeah,
We can't
no,
pretend to deal with this.
we've tried nothing and we're all out of ideas, right?
That's right.
Um, so as far as the history of the case goes, the New York Times, I think the Wall Street Journal published, this so-called breaking news, dispatch about the case that we'll come to in a little bit. Since that dropped, the New York Times, I think, has felt a little ashamed in
Mm-hmm.
that it hasn't really been pushing the envelope on this case as much as it should. So over the weekend, we're recording this on Monday, the 21st of July. They dropped a couple of front page above the fold stories about the history of Trump and Epstein. And what the other day there was, this is about a week ago, there was a sort of full rundown of the case where basically the case as we know it, right? Epstein was initially charged in 2006,
Mm-hmm.
and through a use of high profile lawyers, including Kenneth Starr and Alan Dershowitz, pled out to one charge of solicitation, and his sentence was 13 months in jail. And he was able to do work release, so he could basically just like go to a fancy office every day and work,
Mm-hmm.
whatever that entailed. We still have no idea what his job even was. That's another issue we'll come to later. This was arranged with Alex Acosta, who at the time was attorney general in Florida. He went on to be the labor secretary in the first Trump administration, and this when Epstein was rearrested in 2019, this led to Acosta basically having to resign because it was like, wait a minute, we've known this guy was taking advantage of underage girls for 15 years, and you guy who's in the Trump admin were the one to set up. Now there's a rumor that in an interview with one reporter, there's no documentation of this, but this reporter claims that Acosta backed off from throwing the book at Epstein because he was told that Epstein, quote unquote, belonged to intelligence. But let me
Mm-hmm.
stress, that is one reporter saying that he said that to her. He has denied ever saying that. There's no
Yeah.
recording of him saying that. That has been one of these plums that just has sprouted into a million conspiracy trees. This is where
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the Epstein look. And also, I should say, I'm not saying that he didn't belong to intelligence, right? Like, he very well may have, but we have no proof that he belonged to intelligence. That's where that comes from. So I feel like there was a groundswell of outrage about Epstein leading up to his arrest, right? I mean, we have QAnon, the QAnon movement, and before that, the Pizzagate movement, Pizzagate starts during the 2016 election, right? The idea that there's an elite cabal that is made up of Democrats in the Pizzagate lore and Hollywood celebrities who are trafficking children through a pizza shop in Washington, D.C. The basement has been set up as some kind of perverse dungeon. This eventually leads to a guy going with a gun to that store and like demanding to see the basement. And they're like, there is no basement, sir. Like, there's no basement in the Alamo, right? I mean, this is a whole. That guy turns himself in. That guy subsequently has died. He died in a shootout with police, unrelated to all of this.
Really?
So, yeah, just I think earlier this year. Another sidetrack we could go down, but Pizzagate kind of fizzles after that. But once Trump is elected, QAnon. Interesting thing about QAnon is people forget QAnon did not emerge until October of 2017, when Trump had already been president for 9 months, right? So, why do you think that is? What's your read on like? I have an idea, but do you have any thoughts on
Go
like?
ahead, please.
Basically, Trump comes in saying, I'm going to drain the swamp, yada, yada. I'm going to lock her up. I'm going to imprison all these people. QAnon, the far right fringe on 4chan, 8chan, other places, either believes or wants to believe, in Mulder style, that Hillary is part of this cabal, the one that was implicated in Pizzagate, the one that Epstein is symptomatic of, right? Because Epstein did have ties to the Clinton Foundation. He gave money. He met with Bill Clinton several times. But Trump doesn't do anything. So QAnon emerges as an explanation for why Trump, despite being president, has done nothing about all of these insidious. And the answer comes out to it's the deep state, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're powerful enemies that are arrayed against Trump. I mean, QAnon morphs a lot over the first term of Trump's presidency, and especially once COVID hits. But initially, it's really one of these kind of like political intrigue, like conspiracy theories.
That's right.
And like Q presents himself as an insider. He's like on the plane with Trump. There's like the blurry photo is shared, and people are like, "Oh my God, this is the window of Air Force One." Like I did a measurement of the, like none of this is true. There's a great documentary by Cullen Hobeck that kind of points to who was probably behind Q. Believe it or not, they were not, in fact, on Air Force One at any point. But so Epstein's kind of a part of this, is kind of like he's sort of bubbling in the background. He's free at this point. He's got $800 million or whatever it is. He's flying around. He's going to his island. He's having parties. For all we know, he's continuing to engage in the kind of abuse of young women that initially got him in trouble in 2006. And then he just gets arrested eventually. Eventually, the FBI, part of the problem was when he was arrested in 2006, and when this was all resolved, there was a non-prosecution agreement reached with the state of Florida that sort of like let any of his collaborators, presumably Ghislaine Maxwell being the main one, off the hook. And I think there was some kind of legal, like, it's a sort of state federal thing because he is charged federally, right, in 2019, whereas previously it had been on the state level. I'm getting deep into the woods here. Let me know if help me come up for air, Michael. Like, do you remember hearing about Epstein, like, before his arrest a lot?
Not really. No. Did you?
Yeah, I feel like it was just ambiently around. Now, I am someone who always has his ear to the ground for conspiracism. I've always been obsessed with this stuff.
Yeah, so like in this case, right? It's like you're a good person to talk to, right? It's like, where are you on the bigger things? Where are you on the list? Where are you on the suicide?
All right. basically, I don't think there's a list in any normal sense of the word list. A lot of people are like, yeah, where's the client list? Oh yeah, like criminals who are even moderately intelligent are gonna be like, Bill Clinton did XYZ, right? Like, um, Hillary Clinton, ate four babies at this. It's just like there's not gonna be some list. There's not gonna be some smoking gun. There's no evidence Bill Clinton ever even went to Epstein's island. The only implication is Virginia Giuffre, who sadly took her own life earlier this year, um, who very legitimately was abused by Epstein and Maxwell and was one of the sort of central figures in the prosecution of Maxwell. She said she remembered seeing Clinton at the island. There's no evidence for that.
Right. Okay.
And as we were talking a little beforehand, like, if Bill Clinton had been to Epstein's island, there would be Secret Service record of him going there.
Mm-hmm.
And who controls the Secret Service? Trump. In 2017, don't you think if Trump had evidence that Bill Clinton was on this evil island, he would have been, out with it? Certainly now, whenever all the heat is on him, if he had this smoking gun about Bill Clinton going there. Bill Clinton flew on his plane a lot. Trump flew on his plane a lot. Hillary flew on his plane. A lot of people. Chris Tucker, right? I think
just because he had a private jet, so it was just like,
he had a private jet. He was flying people on charity stuff all the time. People would call him up. He'd do them a favor.
So in some ways, it's like what you're saying is it's not just flying them to go do these terrible things.
No, he was flying people on charity.
This is part of the cover as well.
Right. I mean, Epstein's whole thing was painting himself as this philanthropist who's interested in advancing human knowledge. So I gave all this money to MIT and Harvard and these other. It's why he flew Bill Clinton and Chris Tucker to Africa to do a charitable mission or whatever.
Yeah.
I think there's a guilt by association thing with Epstein that's amazing. Is this like everyone Epstein ever met is somehow implicated in his very specific crimes. Sure. Now, again, are there some instances where that might be true? Sure. Is there any evidence of that aside from the fact that these people were on his plane? No. I think the only person who is a little bit more firmly tied up to potential wrongdoing is Prince Andrew, who claimed, there's an interview with Prince Andrew where he talks to, after Epstein is arrested again, he attempts to clear his name. It's like the worst interview ever given, right? Do you ever
listen? That where he's like, I sweat a lot?
No, he said, I don't sweat. I had an accident in the Falklands War or something that makes it so I can't sweat. It's beautiful. It's one of the marquee performances. Jordan flu game level, except if that was bad. So where do I stand on the client list? I don't think it exists. Is there more evidence of people doing illicit things with Epstein? Yes, but I would imagine most of it is hearsay, right? Like the Virginia Giuffre saying she saw Clinton on the island. She retracted that later because there was no way of corroborating it.
It's sort of in keeping with okay, if you're going to talk about the scale and size and sophistication of the cabal, then the logical extreme of that is that they also cover their tracks and maintain plausible deniability and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
They're not doing it loosely. The idea that they've all been caught. He had a little black book that explained every act that people did. There are the videos. That is something.
But we don't know what are on those videos.
Yeah.
We don't. The FBI claims it's mostly just videos of people coming and going from his foyer.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know. And then Pam Bondi has said that it's CP, right? That it's child exploitation material. Do I believe Pam Bondi? No. Do I believe the FBI? No. But they're the ones who aren't releasing it, and they're the ones who aren't giving us any more, detailed explanation. As far as the suicide thing goes, I don't know. Is it possible he was killed by someone? Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. Do we have any evidence for that? No. But what we do have is an amazing absence of evidence. Whereas the video cameras like all around his cell malfunction, and the guard falls asleep, and no one checks on him for 8 hours, even though he'd attempted suicide 2 weeks before.
Right. It is like you're not going to believe this.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like one of those disasters where like 10 things had to go wrong for the plane to crash, and they did, right? Yeah. That said, the implication that the Clintons somehow had Epstein killed when he was in federal custody in 2019, I think is ludicrous. Like, who was president in 2019 again? Oh, was it Donald Trump? So if we're going to talk about Epstein being murdered, like suspect number one is Trump. It's not.
That's right.
It's not the Clintons, right? Like, what are you talking about? Hillary Clinton like sneaks up to the prison. She's like, psst, psst, hey, guard, it's me, Hillary. Like what's the scenario? Bill makes a call to a friend who makes a call to like.
Yeah.
It isn't much more logical that the person who's actually the president at the time would have more capacity to influence that. I personally, him committing suicide doesn't strike me as that odd. The way in which it was done is odd, but he didn't have a lot of other means at his disposal. Do I think it's possible he committed suicide? I do. Okay. Can I be sure about that? No, absolutely not. So this is the thing. Like, I have so much experience with conspiracies, and what's interesting about this is that a lot of stuff in like JFK, I can just go through and be like, "That's ridiculous. Like, this is not true. Like, you're wrong. Oh, Oswald wasn't a good enough shot. You're wrong. Like, there's much evidence to the contrary of that." With this one, the enigma, so to speak, a phrase that will come back in a minute. I can't debunk it, right? Like, there's no, and of course there's certain things about JFK I can't debunk. 9/11 stuff, mostly I can debunk that too, right? Are there coincidences? With these big world-changing events, which we've said, I mean, this is, we talked about this last week, right? Like, this is the, sine qua non of conspiracy for the 2020s, right? I mean, this is the 2019 and on, like, along with COVID, I would say, right? Sure. Lab leak, bioweapon, vaccine, microchip, all that stuff is close, running close, neck and neck, so to speak. Now, one of the misconceptions about this case is like Epstein being charged with sex trafficking, I think implies to people that he was trafficking them from one place to somewhere else, right? Like, he was procuring girls for other people. Is there the possibility that he was doing that? Absolutely, but that was not what he was charged with in 2019. Okay. He was charged with procuring girls along with Ghislaine Maxwell, for, how dare I mispronounce the name of the famously evil person. He was procuring them primarily for himself, right? Okay. That they would find girls, they would offer them jobs as a masseuse. You come over, they would groom them. At first, they would just do massages, but Epstein would be naked. Then it would escalate to they would be naked too. It's sort of, and then they would entice those girls to bring in their friends. Say, hey, there's an extra 200 for you if you can get another 3 girls next week and stuff like that. This seems to have been the primary thing. And then the trafficking occurs when these girls are like flown with Epstein and Maxwell to the island and things like that. Okay. Right. And that's trafficking. It's like you're being moved from one place to another for the purposes of you're being exploited. Right. It doesn't have to be that you're like thereafter, sold on into slavery or whatever. Right. Which I think is thanks to Sound of Freedom and sort of right-wing QAnon hyper focus on. Sure. There's 3 million children who disappear in America every year. Just these like nonsense things they throw out. The New York Times put it in an article that I'll link to. By calling him a sex trafficker, federal officials left many with the impression Mr. Epstein was selling children to others to be abused. That was never part of the criminal case against him. Again, this is not to say he never did that, right?
Right.
It's just to say that there's no evidence that we have seen that confirms he was doing it. Um, why is Trump not releasing any like? Why was his initial reaction to be like total stonewall on all of this stuff?
Yeah.
Um, and like the funny thing was, Patel and Bongino and Bondi all signed off on the stonewalling. Now, Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are like, they are conspiracy theorists. Like in the last 4 years, they were on podcasts. They had podcasts where they were beating this Epstein, Clinton, cabal drum constantly.
Mm-hmm.
So these two guys are now running the FBI, and for them to come out and be like, "Yeah, there's no there, guys. Sorry, time to move on," is I think one of the biggest reasons that this has blown up so significantly.
Yeah.
But why do you think? What do you think the main implication? What's the main reason that Trump just was like, we got to get rid of this Epstein stuff?
I mean, I think that the most charitable to him, right? Because I agree with you, but I do think that it's hard to imagine someone with such a profound ego, weirdness, and lack of impulse control may have not partaken in these things, right? Right. And I think if there is any, gray area that he did, he's probably protecting himself, first of all.
Okay.
Or if he flat out did, then this would be the sort of response, which is why it's feeding into this.
Right, but Michael, if he did, the Biden administration had these files for 4 years.
That's right.
Why didn't they release them?
But then, of course, that's the greater thing of like they were also protecting people. That's the convenient excuse. That was the exchange that everybody involved from both parties was making.
So it's a mutually assured destruction kind of
thing. Yeah. But I think that also he is the smartest man alive, the best with numbers, the best athlete of all time, best golfer of all time, most healthy body, most healthy brain.
Yeah.
And things like the Wall Street Journal reveal the other day with the scrapbook, right? The birthday present.
Which is what we're going to talk about next. So
is that there are clearly things that are embarrassing. And even if that is the minimum, he cannot handle that type of puncturing.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think is the best case scenario.
I think I basically agree with that, right? I don't think, again, much as it would be great if there was great, horrible, but, great from a people who don't like Trump perspective, some incriminating video or say in these files or whatever. I don't think that's the case. I think you've kind of hit the nail on the head. So the Wall Street Journal comes out with this report last week where, as you say, Ghislaine Maxwell in 2003 compiled a scrapbook for Epstein's, a scrapbook of body letters. Did we do that for your bachelor party, Michael? You know what? I was the one who was supposed to get the body letters, and I dropped the ball. So should we read this? Do you want to be, I'll be Donald, you can be Jeffrey. The voiceover says, "There must be more to life than having everything. Yes, there is. But I won't tell you what it is.
Nor will I, since I also know what it is.
We have certain things in common, Jeffrey."
Yes, we do. Come to think of it.
Enigmas never age. Have you noticed that?
As a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you.
A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. So, this is the note that Trump has included in this scrapbook.
Oh, weird. So weird and cryptic. And...
along with a drawing of a naked woman, and his signature is across the groin, imitating the pubic hair.
Yeah, and he's got the signature for that.
That's true. What was your first thought when you read this letter?
I mean, my first thought was that he's up to no good with Jeffrey Epstein.
Right?
Like what?
Yeah.
I mean, the last line is just like, "What are you doing? Like, how? What are you doing?"
Yeah.
What is the point of this?
It's amazing.
Like, all of the other stuff is like, okay, I can't even really understand it. It's clearly something between them, or the last thing is such a weird thing to write.
May every day be another wonderful secret.
Right. And it's like maybe at this time of their lives, and Trump was a little more relatively mentally coherent, that maybe it's an ongoing conversation about the ease with which they can do whatever they want. That they can.
Clearly it is that, but I mean, they never age.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Enigmas never age, like mysteries never age. Enigmas also kind of unknown things are secret thing
Yes,
that
and Jeffrey, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Are you referring to, is
like
Trump not aging? What are we
where they were
talking about?
hooking up with a young girl together or something. Like
Yeah, and it's like, again, you can read it as the implication being that, like, these young women, they
they
stay.
don't age, we age, but they stay the same age, right?
And again, like, this is the problem that he's running into with the lack of transparency and the drip of this stuff, is that it's all gonna look like this, because at the very least they had a very weird relationship as extremely wealthy people. So it's going to read like that. And it's going to be very easy for anybody to read into whatever they want from what they hear and what they see, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw this, I was like, they fake. This has to be fake. This can't be
Mhm.
real. But a lot has been made of the fact that this is Murdoch, right? This is a Wall Street Journal owned by News Corp. Um, they wouldn't publish this. Trump's been suing everyone for trivial stuff, and they've been settling with him.
Yeah.
Clearly, they would not have published this if they didn't have verification that it was true. Presumably, they got that by talking to other people who were also in the book, who saw the book, who were, I mean, and Dershowitz has a completely insane thing in the book as well. It's like, and all of the stuff is alluding to the fact that Epstein's like into young girls.
Yep. No, I mean, it's
I mean, I know it was a little different.
then the question becomes, is it um Trump is close enough to him that, this was an open secret in circles, that he had
Very
this,
clearly,
at
that's
the
the
very
case.
least, that Epstein had this insatiable,
His predilection, maybe for nothing illegal and anyone knew,
well, I mean, but
but
probably at least with minors, I think, is probably
at least
known,
with
or
18-year-olds,
yeah, with
quote
young, with
unquote, right?
minors, it's known. They've been to the Trump has been to the parties. Epstein has been to his parties. They have been, partying and talking. However it is they talk, the things that he knows. He has described Epstein as a creep as he started to walk back his relationship over the past years, right? And so, that becomes the thing. Is it like, is Trump sort of saying, like, hey, just so you know, like, um, I know what you're up to, buddy.
Right,
For
but then
whatever.
in the dialogue, Epstein's like, and you're up to it too, right? Like,
Well, sure, but, like, is it some sense, again? Is it some sense of, like, at the least, I am Donald Trump and you are Jeffrey Epstein, and you run a bullshit charity and I run one too, and we have all these excesses and luxuries that are totally built on fraud. Ergo, like, we kind of share this thing in common, even if somehow the line does draw at the moment. Trump obviously is desperately hoping that it did.
I see. Yeah. All right, let's just go through a couple more things that link Trump with Epstein. There's this thing from Stacey Williams who says she was groped by Trump when introduced by Epstein. This is from the New York Times. It
Mhm.
was 1993, she said. She was on a walk with Mr. Epstein on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. Great place for a walk. When he suggested they pop into Trump Tower to say hello to Mr. Trump. Ms. Williams thought nothing of it at the time because, as she later put it, Jeffrey talked about Trump all the time. After Trump greeted them in a waiting area outside his office, Miss Williams said he pulled her toward him, touching her breasts, waist, and buttocks as though he was an octopus.
That's right.
Uh, Brutal. Now, the other big thing linking Trump to Epstein is this Maria Farmer allegation.
Mhm.
The encounter with Mr. Trump, Ms. Farmer said, occurred in 1995 as she was preparing to work for Mr. Epstein. She was an artist and she helped Epstein get paintings for his various mansions or whatever. She said she told the authorities late one night Mr. Epstein unexpectedly called her to his office in a luxury building in Manhattan. She arrived in running shorts. Mr. Trump then arrived wearing a business suit and started to hover over her, she said, she told authorities. Ms. Farmer said she recalled feeling scared as Mr. Trump stared at her bare legs. Then Mr. Epstein entered the room, and she recalled him saying to Mr. Trump, "No, no, she's not here for you." The two men left the room, and Ms. Farmer said she could hear Mr. Trump commenting that he thought Ms. Farmer was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And there's some corroboration. She told people about this at the time. And she.
Right. And again, this is a very good example of what one of the problems that might not be Trump on the list remains for Trump, which is he had positioned himself as this fierce defender.
As the cure for this issue.
That's right. And if he was an accomplice by withholding, right? If allowing its seeming facilitation to happen in a way that he knew, then like, it's different, but is it any less damaging? Maybe not. And again, like for a lot of time, I think that Trump was riding this high of getting away with his explanations for anything, of having these people in lockstep. And now it's like, because of the way that this is broken down and the information these people want is not coming, now he's in a tricky spot where if what does come out is like, yes, we can't prove that Trump did X and Y, but we can easily prove that Trump knew,
right,
A and B. And is that enough now, given the fierce concern and, and a lot of this, anti-pedophilia stuff is grounded in a very real place, right? And has sort of spawned into the conspiracy world. So it's very confusing in terms of...
Right. I mean, like, it's very clearly true that rich and powerful people across the world abuse children, right?
Yeah.
That's something that definitely happens. I tend to be of the opinion that, on the one hand, yes, Jeffrey Epstein clearly was involved in that himself, may have abetted other people in doing that, but there's a weird monolithic focus on Epstein, right? As though Epstein's like the only guy that's ever done this. When in point of fact, we were talking in our sports chat the other day about like all these NFL players who have like somehow managed to abuse like 18 masseuses or whatever, right? That there are like examples of this, to say nothing of like the Catholic priest scandal, right? I mean, versus like, in that case, there's no organized network of abuse. What there is an organized network of is cover up, right? Yeah. So it's not like the Catholic Church was like, oh, we'll put an abuser in here and he'll bring that parish into... No. It's like an abuser was uncovered in a parish, and the Catholic Church response was, oof, well, he's now in Malaysia, or like he's in the Vatican rubber room or whatever, right? Like they would cover it up. I think the problem with abuse of children of all sorts is that it primarily happens at home, and it primarily happens at places like the church, like the school, right? Like that it's usually much more about opportunity than it is a kind of nefarious cabal of people. So the fact that Epstein has this hint, these connections to other rich and powerful people, this network of recruitment of young women, certainly, kind of plays into the fantasy of the conspiracist that like this is what's going on all around the world, right? That everywhere there are these tunnels where mole children are being funneled to be abused and whatnot. Do you think this really damages him in the long term, or do you think this is all forgotten in our short attention span world in a couple weeks?
I guess probably it would be impossible for me to say. I mean, like I said, I don't feel like I certainly can't rule out the worst of this stuff, from the suicide to the, incredibly evil acts to the rich and powerful being actually involved with them. Again, I don't know. So it makes it very difficult because I just don't know what would ever come out. I don't know, this, one of the dangerous things for Trump is that like this, unlike most everything else, this doesn't have seemingly a shelf life. And so the question of weeks thing, it could always calm down for a bit, but you just don't know.
Something else happens, it comes right back.
Right. And that's why Trump is like, let's move on. Let's just move on. And sort of draw a line under something that can't be drawn that line can't be drawn anymore. And so I do think that it could get extremely bad for him. I'm not quite sure how. I'm be interesting to see what the process is if this man actually tries to go through with his lawsuit, right? And what that does for the investigation into it.
The Trump's lawsuit
Yeah.
against the Wall
Well,
Street
murder,
Journal. Oh
yeah.
yeah. Well, the problem with that for Trump is disclosure, right?
Mhm.
Like he has to
Mhm.
open up his records to the
Yeah.
probably not, he probably doesn't want to do that. I mean, usually these things are bluffs. Like he just wants to get a settlement out of it,
That's right.
which is what CBS and all these other companies have so happily
Mhm.
done. Yeah, I think you're right. I think what's interesting about it is that it kind of just lingers for the rest of his term as
Yeah.
this sort of time bomb that can explode again.
Mhm.
It's a time bomb that could go off multiple times whenever the sort of need for it to, or the
Mhm.
inexplicable. Yeah, it's we'll see. All right. Well, I think that's good discussion of this. I think it's crazy case. I think we got to some
Yeah, and again, it's just new territory. It's like Trump
to
is.
see Trump on guard like this is strange.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next week we haven't fully decided. Do you want to talk weather control next week?
Yeah, let's do that.
We're going to talk about weather control. Stick on the right wing conspiracy beat for another week. This is something that's been coming up more and more. Certain bills have been passed in certain state legislatures.
Mhm.
And I think we've come to a really interesting inflection point with how the right is going to respond to climate change.
Yep,
And surprise, surprise, the deep state is involved.
that's right.
But until then, we have, you can follow us on the podcatcher of your choice, as I said at the top of the show, remembering to do so for once. And you can follow us on Instagram, The End of the World WMS. But until next week, this has been The End of the World with Michael and Stu.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Stu. And we'll talk to you real soon.